the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness, a couple of Praetors, very loyal looking, very, very fine looking, upstanding individuals altogether.
Yes, my word, aren't they? Yeah, of course, what you're seeing here is a pair of Legion Praetors for the Wordbearers Legion. If you're a fan of the Horus Heresy setting, then these need no introduction, really. But if you're not, let me just give you a little bit of a lowdown. Legion Praetors are the ranking officers of the legions. They're essentially second only to the Primarchs, both in like martial prowess and also all the other attributes you would expect, generalship and command. You would expect amongst the Praetors of other legions to find the likes of Astalan or Luther in the Dark Angels. So within the Wordbearers Legion, you need your ranking officers as well. And there are a couple of characters that probably stand out foremost among them, which we may see models for. If you're looking to create your own little identity for your Wordbearers force, these are the guys you need. Fantastic miniatures, great in games, really good at buffing the units around them and getting the most out of your force. Just for those battles when you either don't have the points for a Primarch, or you've got so many points, your Primarch wants some backup.
And you didn't say 40k Wordbearers, Dark Apostle, and Terminator armor, but I think I might just float that because I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one thing I think that fans of Warhammer 40,000 have found really joyful about the Horus Heresy range is that if you want a really fancy-looking commander for your 40k army, you could do a lot worse than bring in one of these guys. And there's so much to like about them. The flaming mace on the Praetor in the Terminator armor, the awesome-looking power sword and plasma pistol on the one in power armor. You really can't go wrong. And I think it's nice that the Wordbearers are getting just a little bit of extra love.
I do not need to tell you, old friend, that evening victory will likely meet our end here.
Then our duty is done.
We are back. I am still Adam Troke, and I'm joined now by Andy Smiley, head of Games Workshop's media. Andy, what did we just see?
Hey, Adam, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm blown away. I loved it.
I noticed in one of your earlier interviews you managed to mention the Dark Angels twice. That was good going.
I get them in wherever I can. We've got different angels on the screen now, right?
Yep. So that was a couple of minutes from Angels of Death. It's from the mid-season extra long episode where a lot of the action takes place.
Fantastic. And we see the Blood Angels in their strike cruiser in the middle of an enormous space battle. What's going on?
So the Blood Angels are part of a blockade to protect a series of Imperial worlds that are manufacturing weapons so that they can hold out against the Tyranids. And their kind of mission there is to make sure they hold the Tyranids at bay long enough for those worlds to evacuate all the key personnel and supplies. It doesn't quite go to plan.
No, no. I mean, the battle looks like it's rough to say the least.
They are all mightily outnumbered. Yeah.
Yeah, and the size of some of the Tyranid monstrosities and the Imperial ships just tanking an absolute pounding. It really does look just like an incredible scene from the 41st millennium.
Yeah, it was just I'm sure the animators are now relieved that they've finished that scene. I think that 5 minutes of space battle took them as long as some of the other entire episodes, but they've done a really cracking job. And I think I think you saw it in the trailer when the Terran Hive ship itself fires.
Yeah,
That was a really great thing to work on. It's obviously there's not a lot of lore around those ships and how they behave. And one of the guys on the team had a great idea around what if it was like a giant zoanthrope, and it sort of charges up and fires this bioelectrical psychic energy. I think the result was pretty cool.
you've touched on something really interesting there. You said the team who are working on it. What can you tell me about the creative team that are working on this project and how they're collaborating?
I think this project had the largest team, larger
Mhm.
than the Hammer and Bolter team, because it was a full length feature. And so Storyforge had a bunch of writers in it. There was Nick Kime, Ernest Bowden, George Mann, myself, John French, and then some people who we brought in to make sure it was just 40k enough. When you spend your time writing Black Library books and audio dramas and those sorts of things, you're kind of taking the source material and applying a slant to it. So
Sure.
it's always good to have those people that are really core to the Warhammer studio there to just make sure that it's all right on the money. And there was Pete Foley and yourself, of course.
Yep.
A man who used to write codexes in his previous life.
Yep.
Make
it was nice to be involved.
So it was a very collaborative thing in terms of writing. And then we obviously had Bowman Woodine and his crew and Richard Boylan, a great animator, working on it from their side of things. And it's been really collaborative, bouncing stuff back and forth between the writers and their teams.
So one of the things that really strikes me, you see some glimpses of some amazing characters within the minute or two of that trailer. And I saw you tweet just before we went live that you were going to talk about your favorite character. Who is your favorite character in the series?
I think you're right. There are some great characters, and I think that was by virtue of there being a lot of writers. We all sort of took one under our wing, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt.
Really champion. I think yours was Tiro.
Absolutely.
It was the squad member bombastically lugging around his heavy bolter with only one solution to any problem.
Everything's a nail.
And mine was the ship mistress, Livia Sorkin. She's just utterly inflappable and committed to her duty and really ruthless in a great way. And she was great fun to have there and a nice counterpoint to the Space Marines.
Yeah, it's interesting because with Livia we see an entirely different sort of martial power and sort of grasp of military sort of undertakings. The Space Marines are like ruthless when they're waging sort of post-human warfare on everything they go up against, whereas Livia is commanding like a world killer in her own right.
Yeah, and I mean, she begins this particular battle as just one ship captain of many. But when fate befalls some of the more senior ships, she's thrust into command, which again is a moment for her that she deals with well. I think she's a really good human heart for the story, and particularly in later episodes when her ship's boarded and she has to deal with some of that stuff up close and personal. We really get to see what she's made of, and I think look at a ship captain in a way maybe we haven't delved into so deeply in other things before.
Yeah, it's really nice, and I think, as you say, we get a different perspective from her to another captain, who is obviously Captain Orfeo, who we got a little bit of a glimpse of in that, I think, in his
he's the fellow in the Terminator armor. He's great. He's kind of that Space Marine stoicism embodied, duty first, regardless of cost, and he's got some heroic deeds throughout.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. So while we're talking about all of these images you can see on the screen, I noticed that I wanted to talk about the color balance just a little bit because it's such an interesting animation style and it's very different to what we saw last week with Hammer and Bolter. Here it's very much grayscale, but then the Blood Angels really just stand out with their awesome sort of gleaming red plate.
So we wanted to try a couple of different things, and more than a couple actually, and I think we may have some others to show later in the preview. In terms of animation and styles, and so we wanted something that matched the Blood Angels and really played up that kind of gothic horror, sort of melancholy tragedy that's kind of at their core. And there's ostensibly 3 colors in it. There's this sort of grayscale, then the spot color of red to show when there's a Blood Angel, and then white for a kind of feather effect when the Black Rage descends. So spoiler, there maybe 1 or 2 of our heroes don't quite make it through with their sanity intact.
No, such is the price of being a Blood Angel in such times.
But I think Richard and Bowman and their teams there, that they've got a really nice eye for a kind of pathos pacing in some of this. And some of the shots, I can't remember if we've shown it or not, like the drop pod landing and some of the other pieces, they're just really nice, emotive, visuals. Then when you've got that grayscale with it, I just think it gets you right in the heartstrings right before the red armor of the Blood Angels bust onto the scene. The guys, they've just done a great job, I think.
They really have. There's a poetry to some of the things they've put together, which really resonates very well. I'm going to segue, I think, if that's all right, onto you mentioned other animation styles, and I believe that Ben may have something racked up for us to enjoy, a sneak peek, as it were, from another project. What?
Yeah. So again, very different from either Angels of Death or Hammer and Bolter. This one's kind of hyper realistic. Sister of Battle here.
It's just amazing. I mean, I don't really know what else to say. The way the gore is like settling on her forehead, the scar that cuts through her lip, the matted blood. It's unbelievably detailed.
She looks utterly badass, doesn't she? It's like if you ever needed any doubt in your mind that you didn't want to mess with the Sister of Battle, I think she's that embodied. I think, as I said about trying out lots of different styles, not only for kind of thematic reasons or story reasons, but different levels of animation obviously take different lengths of time to produce.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We wanted to make sure that we had a range of projects where we could get some stuff out and try some different things. This project takes a very, very long time to do each piece, so might be a way off yet.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, what we're seeing on the screen now is the head of a Space Marine, right?
Sure is.
Yeah. And he's got the service studs and other sort of augmetic stuff going on, and he just looks hard as nails. He is absolutely the last man you want to start a fight with.
I mean, I think that's a good thing, because he's in for the fight of his life, this fellow.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a little clue as to what we're seeing? I guess there's no surprise you'll see Space Marines locked in battle, but
yeah.
Fantastic. So there's probably not much more we can reveal about those characters. We just got to watch this space, right?
No, they're definitely in the same thing together. There you go.
Oh, there you go. So we're going to see. Oh, all right, fantastic. Well, I'm excited to see those. I've got a funny feeling that we may be running over time. I think Ben's meant to be sending us messages if we are. But the truth is, I could talk about the media stuff with you all day. So, oh, there you go. He says we're all right. So I can fire in one more question. So we've seen some trailers and stuff for Hammer and Bolter last week, which was in that very sort of anime inspired style. This week, the sort of really stylistic sort of blacks and reds of Angels of Death, and then a tiny preview of another project. What would you like to explore the most in terms of animation styles going forward as like driving the Storyforge project?
Well, I mean, I think it's evident from those 3 styles. I just can't choose. We've actually got a 4th and 5th style, and
really
for some different shows. And hopefully we can at least reveal some concept art for that over in the following previews that I know we've got coming up in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Yeah, it's not long till the next one. One of the things I think is really nice about what your team is doing is Warhammer 40,000 has lots of different types of stories. We always talk about the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, and there's lots of layers within that. But then also there's other worlds to Warhammer. We've got Warhammer Age of Sigmar, and I think exploring all these different animation styles and techniques and things is going to give such texture to what we like. And I talk about myself as a fan here, what we can expect.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Hammer and Bolter particularly will give us a chance to do, one of the stories is horror, one of them's kind of a mystery, just to play with genre within the different shows.
So not only will we be seeing different styles of animation throughout that series, but also different themes as well.
Yeah.
Awesome! I can't wait. I want to grill you more on that. The Death's Hand trailer has me loaded with questions. I think, however, that according to my timeline, I need to pass us on. Is that true? Yes, please, says Ben. Right. Well, firstly, thank you for coming on and chatting with us, Andy.
It's been a pleasure, Adam.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us in this segment. Hold right there. There is an awesome reveal just around the corner.
I do not need to tell you, old friend, that evening victory will likely meet our end here.
Then our duty is done.
Blast that thing from the void!
Wow. Okay then. So for anyone who's not already up to speed, Eddie, who or what is the Demonifuge?
Cool. So Demonifuge, as library fans of a certain vintage will be aware of, is a graphic novel series that was released about 20 years ago at this point, which featured a sister of battle who effectively was like a living weapon against chaos. So this is way back before we kind of really knew much about the Sisters of Battle, obviously way before their kind of current range has been expanded. And the Demonifuge was basically a Feral Stern was this sister who kind of had this kind of quest, a journey across the 41st millennium. Great. So obviously this is a kind of a character from Black Library lore that we've seen kind of hunted across the 41st millennium. So we've seen kind of elements of the Inquisition try to kind of capture her, kind of find out what she's about. We've seen the Thousand Sons and Ahriman try to kind of unpick her secrets. We've seen the Dark Eldar try to get her. So basically she's got enemies pretty much in every corner of the 41st millennium. And the fact that she's still like alive and kicking is kind of testament to just how much of a badass she is. Basically, she's just like one of the kind of one of the kind of most capable characters in Warhammer 40,000. And even though the entire galaxy wants her dead, and it's quite a harsh galaxy to want you dead, she's still going. Alongside her, you've got her a kind of Harlequin bodyguard. He is kind of a knight of shadow. He's a very mysterious figure, kind of the last of his clan, and he is kind of her protector, guardian. He's got a kind of pre-foretold mission to look out for her, and these two kind of journey together as kind of wanderers across the 41st millennium, fighting chaos where they can.
Phenomenal. And I seem to remember there had been a kind of Black Library celebration miniature some time in the past of a metal miniature of Ephrail's son. There've been kind of promotional miniatures here and there, but this is a wonderful realization of really iconic sort of look of the kind of comic book cover image that you'd expect to see of such a heroic figure. I've got my old copy of Demonifuge, an old hardback graphic novel, but for anyone who's not had the chance to read up on these stories before, is that going to be made available again?
Yes, so absolutely. So there is a return of the Demonifuge graphic novel. It's a very fun book. I think there's lots of action in there. You see the kind of quest of this character across the galaxy. You also see kind of some insights into elements of the Warhammer 40,000 universe in a lot of instances before they were really fleshed out in detail in kind of future codexes and things. So in some ways it's kind of quite of its time, but there's lots of like really good stuff in there still. The new version of it is going to be re-released in kind of full color. So it's still the original graphic novel, but it's kind of gone back through and all the elements have been updated, so you can kind of appreciate it in its kind of full glory sort of thing.
Seeing that 20th anniversary edition on the cover kind of brings it home, doesn't it? It is
makes me feel quite old, Wade. I'm not gonna lie. But, lovely to see a miniature come back. Ben's just said that he was 4 when this came out.
Ooh, I did not need to know that.
No, it didn't. But the miniature, both of those miniatures are really cool. I think it's obviously we've seen a lot of very cool plastic Sisters of Battle recently, and it's great to have like another character as part of that as well. It's really nice to see a Harlequin character as well too. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people paint that up in kind of their own Harlequin color schemes, and also kind of again, prime opportunity to convert that into something else across your Eldar range and use that miniature as you see fit.
Well, yeah, my brain's superimposing the Light of Eltharion over it now. As you mentioned earlier on, people might be kit bashing elven stuff with Eldari stuff.
Yeah, I love the base on it as well. That kind of like checkerboard kind of hollow projection tiles that he's kind of walking across is just very, very cool, and I think it's going to lend itself really well to some really, really nice painting. Both of those do look like kind of painters miniatures, don't they? They've got some nice kind of areas to experiment with different techniques, and obviously very dynamic poses as well, so I can't wait to see what people do with them.
I'd imagine the Ephrail Stern in particular would go very well in a kind of dual setting, landing in that pose.
Yeah, she looks like she's ready to just bring the wrath of the Emperor, doesn't she? So like, you can imagine her kind of dropping in next to like Abaddon or Khan or something like that, ready to kind of. So I've mentioned your favorite, but I think
yeah. You know how to push my buttons.
She does look like she's ready to kick some chaos butt, doesn't she? Yeah.
I reckon so, yeah, I'd give her that. So, as we mentioned, there have been a number of fantastic plastic Adeptus Sororitas releases. The Sisters of Battle range is huge, but she's conspicuous by her absence in Codex Adeptus Sororitas because, in truth, her story is too big. It's kind of taken her out of the confines of the orders and, as you say, taken her across the galaxy. So, where will people find rules for using these lovely models in their games?
Yes, so both of these models kind of form a pair. They're a kind of joined unit, and they both appear in an upcoming Psychic Awakening book, which is called Psychic Awakening Pariah. So this is the 9th book in the Psychic Awakening series. Pariah, the phrase Pariah has obviously got quite a lot of connotations across Warhammer 40,000. We know that in the Demonifuge novels, if you read them, the Harlequin she's with, the Knight of Shadows, refers to himself as a pariah. We know that pariah effectively is the kind of your null in Warhammer 40,000, your psychic nulls. So the Imperium make great use of them. The Demonifuge itself has kind of been hunted by pariahs in the past in that graphic novel. She goes up against Eclexis at one point. And also various different Xenos races across the Warhammer 40,000 universe have tried to kind of use the powers of pariah to kind of stand against chaos or use it to their own nefarious ends. So it's just a small word for Psychic Awakening, but it's got quite a lot of kind of meaning within the 41st millennium. It's the opposite of chaos, but not necessarily in a good way.
And it's yeah, pretty much the opposite of Psyker in some senses as well. And in a time of psychic awakening, with Psykers becoming more powerful, psychic abilities going unchecked and out of control, the ability to be able to shut down Psykers and psychic abilities with pariahs and nulls, you'd imagine, would be quite advantageous.
Yeah, I imagine it's a quite in-demand ability in the Warhammer 40,000 universe right now. So if the opportunity is to stand next to someone who makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, or to be eaten by a demon, I think most people would probably choose proximity to a pariah.
And we were talking about the War of the Spider last week when we saw the Fabius Bile reveal, and knowing that he and his agents and some of the other factions will be detailed in that Psychic Awakening book. I understand that Pariah is the 9th Psychic Awakening book, and the ambition was to make sure that all the Psychic Awakening books covered all the factions, and there's going to be some rules for the Death Watch and the Harlequins as part of that Psychic Awakening treatment coming up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that obviously a lot of armies in Warhammer 40,000 have now got their rules through various Psychic Awakening updates, and kind of the intent at the start was to make sure that all of the armies would be covered at some point during the kind of the series of Psychic Awakening during that period. So the news for Death Watch and for Harlequin players today is that we can announce that their rules will be covered in upcoming issues of White Dwarf. So the Death Watch ones you won't have to wait very long for at all. And like the rest of the Psychic Awakening, you can look forward to things like new stratagems, kind of new rules, new kind of tweaks to your army to kind of bring them in line with the rest of the armies that have kind of been had extra rules across the Psychic Awakening.
Superb. It's 3 o'clock. That's just disappeared. We've done, I think, pretty much everything that we set out to cover over the course of Warhammer Preview 2 Online. Is there anything that we've missed, Eddie?
I thought, well, it was some very cool stuff. Obviously, we've seen some new models today. We've seen hints of the kind of new media projects. We've seen some new books that are coming up. So it's pretty exciting set of stuff, I think.
Indeed, absolutely. So last week we announced that Primaris Lieutenant or Lieutenant, depending on where you are in the world, I don't judge, that model Amulius was going to be made available for a 2-week period. So if that was 1 week ago, using maths, I understand there's a week left for people to order Primaris Lieutenant or Lieutenant Amulius from the Games Workshop website if they haven't already.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think just under 6 days left to order that guy if you want to add him to your Space Marine army. Obviously a very impressive miniature. Originally obviously planned for release at the Adepticon event in Chicago in the USA. That event was sadly cancelled, so we wanted to give everyone a chance to kind of have one last chance to pick him up if they didn't manage to make it to an event this year, or if they were planning to go to an event that was sadly cancelled. So you've got 1 week left to grab that guy while you can.